Welcome. I'll be reacting to the movie Zardoz. I'm not sure what this is about, but I have been told it's quite unique, so we'll see what it is. Future me here, having watched the movie, I just wanted to add in a warning. This contains a great deal of gun violence, and with everything going on recently, if you want to skip this reaction, I totally understand. Want to let you know before it starts. So without further ado, this is not a market substitute. Support the original. Oh, Sean Connery. This should be an interesting movie. I guess we're using horses in the future. Well, I mean, with gas prices the way they are, I can see why.
And makes new life to poison the earth with a plague of men, as once it was. Go forth and kill.
Yikes. Oddly timely. Okay, so what's your agenda, Zardoz? Sean Connery snuck aboard. They seem to be in stasis. It won't work, he's immortal. Although if it falls in the lake, all those people in stasis will drown. Oh, good. Only Sean Connery could pull off this outfit. The color is good, but the design... Oh dear. A mill of some kind. They have some technology then. You have the horse and wagon outside and this going on. I go to open studios a lot, and this kind of looks like some of the artists' houses, because you get kind of the attic where they work. It has a lot of beautiful art, but also kind of eclectic on the walls. Pop goes the weasel. This really looks like a place where if you were several hundred years old and just collected random stuff along the way, this is what would happen. So it's like a computer, kind of. This would be really unnerving if you weren't used to technology.
What is it?
Flower.
For what?
Decorative.
He's got his own Siri now. They seem frozen as well. This is an absolutely beautiful location. Look at this water. And he's basically dressed for swimming. He just needs to take off his ammo belt. Dive right in. She has the headdress of an immortal. Or maybe it's just someone who lives in this area.
You will show me how you come to be here.
She's like Galadriel.
It seems to be able to control its memory.
Cultivation has started.
Oof.
No brutal has ever penetrated a vortex. It therefore requires study.
This is going to be a minefield of what I can and cannot show on YouTube. But it is very artistic, almost like a Renaissance painting in the background.
Terribly exciting.
But the suffering.
Oh, you can't equate their feelings with ours. Just entertainment.
It really is kind of like Divergent. You have this detached, somewhat scientific community just kind of studying them and not realizing how much pain they're causing.
In 200 years, the greatest scientific minds have lived here to test a theory.
A full genetic study. Break its DNA code. See if there are any structural or evolutional changes since ours were analyzed 200 years ago.
Not long ago, she was asking for new births, although we have no death. We are perfectly stabilized. We said no to May.
Anything to relieve the boredom.
I want to see more of its memories. So do I.
Uh-oh, bored immortals. Never a good thing. Zed is clearly extremely dangerous and needs to be put back in the Outlands. I suppose if you live this long, you don't have the connection anymore to what's going on. You're just, that's going on over there. That doesn't pertain to us.
Just menial tasks. Nothing too taxing. Goddesses, kings and queens. Take your pick. But they're all dead. Dead? Died of boredom.
Well, several thousand years might do that to you.
Are you not taking food with us, May?
No. Come, Zed.
I love how
This
the
way.
bread is green.
Taking her studies very serious.
Go in.
Really interesting camera work
Go
here.
on.
Very artistic.
I am innocent of psychic violence.
That is actually an interesting point. If you can read minds and emotion, and someone comes in and is in a bad mood, that really hits you hard. Would that be considered violence? Would that be a legitimate crime? But it's so hard to control your emotion and thoughts like that. It makes me grateful that humans are only kind of low-level empaths. I wouldn't want to be high-level. That much input all the time. Ugh. Do they just eat bread and meat? And they dye them all green? Why not different colors?
Every little sin and misdemeanor raked over and over.
Ooh.
He'll get 6 months at least.
Prison.
Aging.
Oh, aging.
They make you old, but
You
they
don't
don't
die.
let you die.
Ooh. Ah.
So what's to stop you killing yourself?
But the Eternal Tabernacle simply rebuilds me. I myself feel quite at home in it.
I don't know. They look like they're having the most fun out of everyone.
You idle, apathetic, melancholy sight. Didn't Zardoz tell you about the apathetic?
They just don't care anymore.
That's why Zardoz made you grow crops.
So it happens when you don't have a challenge in life, I guess. You just give up. He's getting a reaction.
George Seydon will be aged 5 years.
It's a long time.
Eternals soon discovered that erection was
Oh.
impossible to achieve.
Oh dear, the poor Eternals.
It's astonishing that Homo sapiens spends so much time in this vulnerable condition. At the mercy of its enemies.
Not those of us who are insomniacs.
And second-level meditation took its place.
Oh, like elves
Sleep
in
was
D&D.
closely connected with death.
You are a mutant. That you're mentally and physically vastly superior to me or anyone else here. I will keep this knowledge from the others for the moment. Keep you alive.
They call it divergent. You can't tell anyone about this, not even your parents.
Give your votes.
I like her
Mary's been
vote.
given 7 days to complete her study.
Oh, it seems like they only fully share consciousness at second level then. So they psychically create renegades. Just when they don't like someone. That's a lot of power. Could he climb it? Is it a dome? Would you even recognize him? He's probably in his 90s now.
Friend. And he can die himself. He's mortal.
Once he decides to fight back, it's not going to be much of a fight, though. It's an interesting film because everyone in it is just entirely loathsome as a person. So you're not really rooting for anyone at all. You're just like, you are all terrible people. However, the social experiments of the different types of communities are interesting.
Someone must know how to break it.
Yes. He didn't conform. So this is what his grateful people did to him.
So he created all this, and they renegated him? It's like Themistocles.
Tell me everything. Had you seen a book before?
Never. I learned all that had been hidden from me. I learned what the world had been before the darkness fell.
It's kind of like the time machine. If one of the people learned to read again and read all the books, it would be really strange to be the only person who knows all this. But clearly it didn't do anything to affect his level of violence. Reading doesn't help, apparently. In the Sword of Truth series, which is a very interesting set of books, but ooh, it gets violent. They made an interesting point because one of the main villains is highly intelligent. He collects books. He reads extensively. And the point the author was trying to make is that sometimes we get this idea in our heads that intelligence equals compassion. And in that story, they were showing no. If anything, intelligent cruelty is worse.
Show me. You must tell me. No! No! You killed Arthur, didn't you? No! Show me the whole lily! No! What are you doing?
What was the book?
What is the book?
No. No. No.
Of course!
Zardoz
The Wizard of Oz!
is pleased.
Zardoz.
Zardoz. When the title first came up, Zardoz, I almost was like making an Oz joke, because Oz at the end, and I was like, no, that's too obvious. Everyone's thinking Oz. Alright, apparently, yes. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
They looked behind the mask and found the truth.
So this is your scientific investigation. There's another word for it. Bestiality.
Yeah, but he's a mutant. He can probably fight their psychic powers.
I will help you if, when the time comes, you will set me free. When the need arises,
You might want to take more than one.
cut ourselves off to guard the knowledge and treasures of civilization as the world plunged into a dark age. We are custodians of the past for an unknown future.
Interesting that her hair is down now. It's like an actual letting her hair down moment. She reacted to him earlier, though. It's an interesting theory being propounded by this movie that without violence and strong emotions, there is no passion. And when you cut yourself off from all emotion, trying to stop yourself from evil, you also cut yourself off from anything good. This was explored as well in Serenity, the Firefly movie, where they had the pacts, which was supposed to make everyone calm and peaceful and nice to each other, and there's no crime. And for a while it worked brilliantly. Everyone was very calm and happy and serene, and then they just stopped.
There's 30 million people here and they all just let themselves die.
I think they can be woken up again. This is like the ritual earlier with the bread, when they were passing it around. He's like, I'm trying to hide, not start an orgy here.
Death. Bring death to you all.
It's interesting how the different groups are viewing him. The apathetics see him as bringing life, reviving their interest in things, their passion. The renegades are only interested in ending things, and they want him to do that. And then the people in between are trying to protect their own interests at any cost. And as he heard earlier, during the apocalypse, all the rich people just shut themselves off in a barriered area and watched everyone else suffer and did nothing. And now we're getting that pent up emotion coming out as they're just going through and destroying their own community in an attempt to destroy him, a monster of their own creation. Kind of like Frankenstein's monster. They created it and then didn't want it.
And then we felt desire. Look at the excitement you caused.
Most of the people seem to have reacted to this situation by basically having a Beltane celebration. Interesting that they're having this conversation in the Hall of the Gods.
I have my followers. Inseminate us all, and we'll teach you all we know, give you all we have.
Making love while giving math lessons.
Ciel est par-dessus le toit, si bleu, si calme.
This really feels like the DeRosa Preserve right here, which has projections here and there, and it's very 60s and 70s, and just this incredibly eclectic collection of art. It's very overwhelming, kind of like what he's going through right here, just kind of thrown at you. I don't know why, but this movie just keeps reminding me of visiting there. Maybe it's because it's a similar era or the very artsy feel to it. It's almost stuffy with stored knowledge that's kind of been neglected, but also not. It's so difficult to describe the sensation. It's a feeling like I haven't had anywhere else. Oh, it looks like the house, which is what I got to tour, isn't technically open, but they might be open later. Interesting. I was an art student, and we got to tour a lot of places. They have just the regular art galleries open, which is so disappointing. But maybe soon.
Did you go?
Yes. Another dead end.
So they did space travel and then gave up on that too?
And now we're trapped by our own devices. There is no exit.
This crystal shall join us, each to each.
When you can see into this crystal, then you will be ready.
We've met before, I believe. Arthur Frayne.
And here they are, destroying the very things they said they were here to protect.
You cannot. You will not.
I've destroyed what I set out to defend.
He who fights too long against dragons becomes a dragon himself. If I live, we will live together.
Where did that come from?
Go now.
I mean, I get why he would be attracted to her. She's gorgeous. But that was just so random.
A receiver must be like a transmitter. I think you're a crystal.
Your aim is to destroy me, isn't it?
Yes.
Joined to us. A light shining to the future. Love us. Cherish the truth.
No!
For an early film like this, they're really taking advantage of projections. It's almost like watching a theater production that's really well done. I feel like this is a stage play. They're showing kind of reflections rippling here. And earlier you saw with the lake water, the rippling reflection in the lake. So there's a theme with the water and the crystal and here with kind of the mirrors. Interesting. It's like he was confronting himself in the mask, who he used to be. What are you doing? It's like they've become everything they were trying to force outside. All these beautiful pieces of art that they were trying to preserve, just gone. Ooh, he has powers now. The new Zardoz, in a way. He's reversing it. This is kind of like that scene in Doctor Strange towards the end of the first film with the Eye of Agamotto.
A good death.
There you will pass through the wall.
What will become of you? Will you go back to your people?
There is no going back for me.
We are all mortal again. Liberate me now, according to your promise.
All that I was is gone.
Kill me too!
I know it was consensual, but that is still quite the scene to watch. I just don't buy the romance between these two. I'm sorry. Maybe because they're both terrible people. But they didn't have any chemistry. Like, they're each attractive individually, but I don't see them together. The fact that they killed the musicians towards the end is an interesting take on the Titanic as well, with the musicians who played as they were sinking right to the end. I don't know if that was a deliberate choice there, but I feel like it was. And here you have the Ophelia going on, kind of a Renaissance painting here as well. Interesting way of showing time passing with kind of the portrait look. Oh, okay. Just sat there. Obviously, this was a very powerful commentary on our current society and where we might go as well in the future when you have a small group of very rich people who are highly educated, who basically think that they know better, trying to preserve things. And when they were talking about having to steel themselves against all of that suffering by those ordinary people outside, I couldn't help thinking about everything going on right now in the world. Even compassionate people, to a certain extent, need to kind of shut themselves off from the news. I used to watch Patriot Act on Netflix before it got canceled. He talked about having too many browser tabs open in your brain, that there's so much pain and suffering going on in the world right now and in the news, and it overwhelms us. And it's okay to close those tabs. It's okay to have only a few tabs open, as it were, of things that you focus on and you really care about and try to make a difference for. You can't help everything. But what these people did here is they just shut down their whole computer. They didn't care about anything. And as a result, you saw the three general groups: the apathetics, who just went, the group who basically couldn't handle it, were totally overwhelmed and ended up aged, senile, very jaded about everything, and not really helping anymore. And then you have the group who were just like, let's keep doing what we're doing. No deviations. Just keep making that bread green. And any tiny thing that dares be different must be expelled. And then eventually they find they can't have children because there's no passion there. They're just going through the motions, faking it somehow.
She's not even half the girl she... Oh.
Sorry, Buffy fan. They're basically completely dependent on, I guess you could call it an AI. Even though it kept saying, why would I give you information causing my own demise? We also got that hint towards the end that it had manipulated Zed and Zardoz to make this inevitable end happen. So that was very intriguing. And then we also got the Outlander people, who, from what I can tell, were kind of post-apocalyptic population, and then you had these religious zealot extremists with the false religion being manipulated, which was, of course, a not very veiled jab at actual religions. Should we question those gods when they ask us to do things like that? And there was that throwaway line that the ancient classical gods are gone because they just got bored. They were obviously just speaking from experience of, we're immortal, we've been around for several hundred years and we're bored. So he didn't actually know. However, that was quite the scene where they kept bringing up that hallway of classical images, and therefore, of course, things like Greek and Roman mythology. And then over and over we got the theme of, just because you're scientific, you're highly intelligent, that's not enough. You also have to truly be alive. Now, they tended to, in this film, equate being alive with sensual relations. And as a gray ace, I completely disagree. However, I think this was made in an era where free love was a big discussion point, right after everything being repressed in the 1950s and being like, we don't talk about this. We don't talk about no, no, no. And finally, it was openly okay to discuss this kind of thing. And I think that's what this film came out of, is, hey, let's actually sit down and talk about, is there a correlation between arousal and violence? Thank goodness I'm a lesbian and don't have to worry about this sort of thing. Ooh. This was a really interesting film because it openly talks about things that are kind of taboo in our society to this day. Just out there on screen. We won't go into all the gun violence because obviously that is a very charged topic that I'm sure everyone has definite opinions on, and I try not to get political on this channel. But I appreciate that the filmmakers said, we're going to blatantly have this and open it up to discussion. I think the reason why I ended up actually liking this film is the artistic quality. This really felt like I was walking into a contemporary experimental art museum exhibit. I know I went on a long tangent about De Rosa, but to me that's kind of exactly what this felt like, is walking into a museum and watching this. It was like a very long piece of art. I wouldn't even define this as a movie. I would go so far as to say this was a piece of fine art that is a commentary on society. I don't consider it a film. So feel free to disagree on that in the comments or add your own thoughts. Is this a film, or is it a piece of art that has movement to it and uses film as a medium for expression? It is very interesting to me that this won the poll and got so many requests. So I do hope that you enjoyed this reaction. It was definitely an experience.